Hello, world. Welcome to the Speed Strength Show. I'm Tommy.
I'm Braden.
And I'm Jay. If you had one piece of equipment to train yourself or a client, what would it be?
Oh, that is a good one.
Just one piece.
Just one piece, kind of rolling in from your last episode. One piece.
One piece would be like a barbell and that's it. No weight,
Yeah,
no
no
clips, no
weights on
rack.
it.
Oh,
Nope,
no
nope,
clips. Well, clips don't
nope,
matter.
no,
Yeah,
no weights.
if you got
If
no
you're
weight, no
picking
clips.
barbell, yeah, if you're picking barbell, that's all you got. 45 pounds. Barbell.
Wow. Oh man, that is tough. That's tough.
I'll get the ball rolling. How about I help you out a little bit? For me, it's a TRX. Just super versatile. You can do your whole body. You can take it with you. For me, that's what it would be.
My instinct was to say weight vest. I know it's maybe right now, like with the Rona and like the idea of like equipment and stuff like that. I don't know if it'd be the best for a client, but I'm going to go on the assumption I can remove the weight, throw it in the washing machine and, make it sanitary. But my first thought was a weight vest just because of the versatility around that. But then you get some external load.
Yeah, those are both really good ideas. This question really takes me out of my element.
Yeah, the power lifter doesn't know what to do if he only has an empty barbell.
I haven't not used a rack for anything in so long. Oh man. But yeah, I mean the TRX I think is a really good answer because you can do literally anything with that. Yeah, I don't know. Outside of that stuff, like that's like I guess the first things that come to my head is probably like bands. Bands are really easy to do a bunch of different stuff with. If we're talking one piece, like would you count a cable machine as one piece or like a Kaiser machine as one piece?
Sure. Yeah, that counts for sure.
That's a good idea.
That counts.
So
yeah,
probably maybe something like that then, because I think that's you can do. I mean, maybe it's not as versatile in terms of the orientation of movements, but you can load them a lot differently. So something like that, I think, would be worth consideration if money's no object.
Yeah, I mean, you can load a squat, holding put it at the bottom handles and load a squat. You can do a lot with the cable stack for sure, and you're getting more load variation, right? So, nice. That's a good one. Now that's tough if you were stuck on a desert island. That might be tough, or trying to pack that thing in a suitcase. But yeah, I'm with you. Cable's good one too.
Bring it around your car. Portable Kaiser,
yeah.
But yeah, the Kaiser's a good idea, or the cable just in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you could do with that.
Yeah. Throw it in the back of your truck and you can take it anywhere.
It depends on the size of your truck.
I suppose that's true.
You need like a UPS truck. Take it everywhere with you.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't go with like a 50-pound kettlebell, Tom.
To me, the weight vest is more versatile. I mean, I love my kettlebells. Don't get me wrong. But I'm restricted to one. So even here, like I have 4 kettlebells and it allows me to get like a decent amount of stuff done. But if you made me just pick one, I feel like I'd always find a shortcoming. If I go heavy, then it's great for swings and goblet squats and other things like that. But there's no way I can press like a 40-kilo kettlebell overhead or something like that. Right. But then if you go on the lighter end, you can get the upper body stuff done. But then the swings and all that other stuff, it doesn't challenge you enough. So that's why I went with the weight vest, because I figured you can load up some sort of push up, pull up, row, anything you can grab onto and pull yourself, and with a pistol squat, if you need to start loading it up or jumping or anything like that. So I just thought the versatility is greater with a weight vest than a singular kettlebell.
Yeah, like you said, it's sometimes if you're picking one weight, it's too light for something and too heavy for something else, right? So that's why you're always usually having a couple kettlebells, even if the weight difference is, you don't need every 2 kilogram weight increment, but you take a bigger jump. But yeah, like you said, it's tough to press something, and then if you can press it, it's way too easy for lower body work. So, yeah, I love kettlebells too, but yeah, it becomes, if it's one piece and one shot, yeah, you have to have some adjustment to the weight, but also versatility and movement.
And I mean, I'm biased to agree with you on the TRX because we trained with that for what, 2 summers?
Yeah,
And it worked.
I still think you have mine. I still think mine is with you somewhere in the basement or somewhere. I don't know. I lent it to you and I don't recall getting it back. So that's all.
I definitely brought it back to you because I brought it with me to Montreal and then I brought it back to you. So I
had 2 and now I have 1. That's all I'm saying.
If I had it, I'd be using it. Believe me, if I had it, I'd be using it. And I don't know how it would have made it out with me to Alberta because I didn't like I said, trust me, if I had it, I would have told you that I stole it because I was using it for all kinds of stuff. Or be popping up on Instagram videos and be like, Tommy, where'd you get the TRX? And be like, I don't know. You found it.
That's funny.
So I'm going to go on the record and say I did not steal your TRX. Like on the record, on air, I didn't do that. That wasn't me.
No, it's all good.
The other one that's coming to my head now actually is a tire, like a big tractor tire. As I have one in here at the house, and I've there's been times where that's the only option, and it's interesting to get creative with that stuff because you can do different like pressing variations. Like it's hard. You can really only load it in one way, but you can do like pressing and squatting and hinging and different kinds of things, and you could drag it, if you're strong. But it's not as accessible for clients, probably. You got to have a pretty solid base to get it moving.
Yeah, and it kind of will act as a box, step ups maybe, box jumps or jumping into the middle of it. It does give you some, put the foot on it for the rear foot split squats. Like it gives you some versatility that way as well. But yeah, like you said, you need a requisite level of strength to even budget in the first place because those things are huge, right? So
yeah.
How heavy is your tire, Braden? Have you ever weighed it, or do you have an idea?
I have no idea how heavy it is. But it's one of the big tractor tires. Like if you stand it up, it's probably almost as tall as me.
Okay, yes, that's a tire that would require that base level of strength then.
Yeah, it's a big one. Like it's the same kind of, I remember playing high school football, and when you start playing, everyone wants to try to flip the tire. The coaches tell you to try to flip the tire and stuff, and no one can do it until you're, a few kids in grade 10 can do it, and then by the time you're in 5th year, then most people can do it. But
it's usually a team lift in the beginning. Like the one kid will go to try to budget and it won't go, and then a second kid will jump in. Then it usually takes like 3 or 4 of them to kind of get the thing to actually go up and over.
Yeah. When my rugby team was doing it, we did like a circuit kind of thing with it where we're like taking turns flipping it down, and I flipped it by myself, and then there was like 2 medium-sized people that would do it as a team, and then 3 smaller people that would do it as a team, and then just rotate that way. But yeah, a lot of fun with the tire, personally anyway.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and then as you bring up some of the other ideas too, Jay, like if it's a big enough tire, you can start to put your foot up on it, or your hands up on it and stuff like that. So you can use it in ways that I guess would be more unconventional. Because I'm sure if you just say tire, everyone just goes, oh, you can do tire flips and that's it. But I mean, you can get creative with that stuff and do all kinds of different things and work other exercises into it. So especially if you're in a jam, if it's the only piece of equipment, I feel like you will find a way to work other things into it because you don't have the luxury of, a library full of different tools and pieces to play with.
Yeah, I think that's a good, almost like challenge for yourself as a performance professional is like pick a piece of equipment, one thing, and do a workout and see kind of what movements you can explore. Do you have the creativity or to create a full body workout with just a barbell or just a single kettlebell or at a certain weight? And for some exercises, again, maybe you change the tempo to make it harder, but other things, maybe you add speed to because it's the kind of light for that or whatever. So, it's an interesting exercise in fostering your creativity as a practitioner, right?
I feel like that's something a lot of people have been having to do, like through the closures and stuff, is to experiment with different stuff. And I know for me personally, like the athletes that were able to continue powerlifting at home had access to like a rack and a barbell and weights and stuff, but that was it. So how do you do different accessories? And you know, I like programming pull-ups a lot of the time in the gym. Like that's one of my favorite upper back exercises to, challenge the lats and stuff. And outside of, like, it's really easy to do rows and stuff with a barbell, obviously, but doing any kind of vertical pulling is a little bit more challenging. So I found myself programming lat pullovers a lot, which I never, I wouldn't reach for that exercise normally, but sometimes that's all you have,
Yeah, that's the hardest. That's probably the hard. I mean, Tommy and I've talked about it through the pandemic. That's the hardest movement to replicate at home, is that vertical pulling. So how do you figure it out if you don't have, one of those door frame pull-up bars?
I mean, those door frame bars, those are suspect at best, depending on, especially the weight of the person too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We have to get super creative to replicate, or go to an exercise that maybe we thought was, maybe didn't have a place before, was like maybe bodybuilding or a certain sector only did it. And it's like, well, that's all we got. So we have to go into some of these other movements that maybe we wouldn't do otherwise, because we had the facility or the equipment to not worry about it, right? But yeah, that's been the hardest one, is the vertical pulling.
Well, I mean, I guess sort of like in these episodes, me and Braden are forced just to pull ideas from one another. But sometimes we have the flexibility or the privilege of having a guest that we get to pull ideas from as well. So today's one of those episodes. We have another person jumping in on the call. So we have Jay here today, and I'm super excited personally to have Jay on the show. As a coached me, he has worked with me. He's a friend. I speak very highly of Jay. You can go back to episode 2 if you want to hear a little bit about kind of where we first, started coaching together and things like that. Because he's definitely a huge influence and mentor of mine. So I'm super stoked that you're on today, and we get to chat to you about some basketball stuff. So I don't know if you want to take a couple minutes and just let the audience kind of know a little bit about yourself, and maybe how you got into basketball and why that's kind of your focal point right now with like performance work.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited. I've been listening to all of the podcasts that you guys have put out, and have seen it grow, and bringing guests and talking about some really cool things. And so, really humbled that you asked me to be on. Yeah, Tommy and I obviously go way back from your high school days even.
That's why I got the BR shirt on today. Never worn it, but I figured I got to break this out for the episode with Jay.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how we first met, but I kind of got into training and performance like most strength coaches in high school. Played football and ran track, and wanted to just be better as I entered my grade 12 and OAC grade 13 at the time. After disappointing finishes to the season before, right? And so when that's fueling you do what you can through the summer to try to improve. Looking back, it's like I had no idea what I was doing. I was working out in the garage of my friend's house, or we had a little bench press set and stuff in my basement, and it was just what my dad told me, or what my uncle told me, or what friends had told me, and it was really not really performance training. It was bodybuilding, and it was isolative muscle work and things like that. And that grew into understanding that this could be a career for me, working with athletes and working in performance, and went to college and pursued that. And have been fortunate to work at a few OCAA institutions and college institutions, and now currently at Abbott Master University, leading the men's basketball program there in strength conditioning, which is super exciting to be just with one team after spending most of my career with multiple teams and multiple sports. Obviously, that's important. It lays the foundation for some of the things that I draw upon. But to really kind of sink your teeth into one team and get to know those, we have 11, 12 guys right now. Get to know those guys individually a little bit more than you can when you're dealing with 100, 150 athletes, right? So, that's been really great to be at MAC since October. And actually, it's my second go around at MAC. I was there in 2012 to 2014, working with the football team and with some other high school programs that they had. So it's been nice to get back and see some of the changes. As far as getting into basketball, that happened, not on purpose. I wasn't searching out, to be involved in basketball. Obviously, when I was at Humber, we have a very prolific basketball program there, and so that became, part of my role as we hired more strength and conditioning coaches, and were able to split teams up. I had basketball and softball, baseball, and the other coach, Joe, had volleyball, rugby, cross country, and so that allowed me to focus a little bit more, as I said, into that smaller group of student athletes. And then one summer, the national program uses Humber College as a practice facility for camps in the summertime. And previously, I wasn't employed at Humber in the summer. My contract just went academic term, so I would go home and not really be back on campus all summer. So I didn't really know that they were even using it. But one summer, we got a new athletic director. Our contracts got extended through the summer, so I was on campus, and Team Canada was practicing the junior national team, so the under 18-19 team, and their strength coach couldn't attend that summer. Josh Ford, who had just taken the job at University of Guelph at the time, and couldn't come. And so, one of the staff members at Humber is also staff of Canada basketball, and said, "Hey, we have a guy." Said to the coach at the time, "Hey, we have a guy who could probably fill that role." So I talked to the coach. Josh and I are pretty similar, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later. And that transition was really easy, and that was my first experience with Canada basketball, and I was fortunate to be back every summer with that team or the age group below that, and that really kind of piqued my interest and started down this path of understanding the game and what performance means for basketball, and what some of the shortcomings are of young basketball players, in that age group, 14, 15, 16. And open some other doors. Tommy and I worked together with the junior academy program, which is grade 6, grade 7. We worked a couple of years of that. And so, that's, I was ready. I had made a good impression when I was there that first summer, and that kind of carried on. It's been 5 or 6 summers being involved in the national program. So that's kind of how that panned out. And, I'm, as I said, very fortunate to have a basketball only position because it's not very common in the CI in youth sport. I also work in a private facility as well. Obviously, the few hours a week I'm with the basketball team doesn't keep a roof over my head, but I work at a private facility in Guelph with high school athletes, active adult population. We have a group, adult group and some youth teams as well. So I'm there a few nights a week, few afternoons a week as well.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that you had to cover for Josh, and that's how you got involved with. I didn't know that, even though we had worked together with CB. So that was, but I knew they trained out of Humber, so that would make sense that, you're right place, right time, and then boom, you get the opportunity to do that. So Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, it definitely helps when if you have a similar training philosophy as someone else, and they can't attend something, then that puts the sports staff at ease, right? Like Josh and I are not super different. And so if they have been used to Josh for a couple of summers, then it was an easy transition. So that helps as well when there's even if you know them or don't know them, there's just that ease of transition because your philosophies may be similar, right? So as I said, it was fortunate that I came in, but also, I was similar to Josh, and that helped as well.
Your similarities to Josh, like sort of in the philosophies and things like that. I'm sure your philosophy of working with basketball players and what you want to do with them to make them better probably comes from the way that you've looked at and sort of figured out the game, or the needs analysis, let's call it, of basketball. Me and Braden have talked in past episodes, probably all of them, about, you have to understand the sport or the activity and what's going on in order to best do the training. And we always kind of talk about it in a general standpoint. But now we have the opportunity today to talk maybe specifically about basketball. So what are some of the things that you're looking for, or that you see in the sport of basketball from like a needs analysis perspective, that maybe even is a little bit unique too? I think most people can watch the game and go, oh, okay, you got to be able to jump to lay up or dunk or block, and they change direction, so you have to be agile. But I feel like anybody can watch the game and see that. What are maybe some of the insights you can give people with spending years and years with the game, where you go, okay, these are underrated abilities or needs that pertain to the game of basketball and influence how you train them?
Yeah, I think the best definition of the sport came from Travis Knight, who's the strength coach at Gonzaga University, and I attended a conference, and he put up kind of his definition of what exactly that, what's the kind of requirements of the game. And so, his definition was basketball is an open skill sport. It has many visual requirements. There are a range of different time pressures, and perturbation is a common experience. And when he said that, it was like a light bulb went off. Like, yeah, that's the game. There's so many things happening within the game as far as those kind of key pieces of that statement, right? Visual requirements. Not only are you obviously trying to put a ball in a basket, and depth perception is so important, but also where are the 9 other players, right? And where are they moving, and how fast are they moving, and how much space do you have, and how much space is getting taken away. And so your brain is trying to process all of that information through that system, right? And then, the time pressures automatically, we think about the shot clock, right? Like, that's obviously right away something that jumps out if you think about the time pressure, but it's also like I just said, like, how much time do I have before that guy is right on me, or how much time am I trying to take away from that other person, or those type of time pressures, the windows, to see, your open man are super small the higher you get. So can you see that? Can you read that? Can you make that decision, right? And then can your body express that, whatever you're trying to do in that time that you have, right? And so, that's super important. And then that perturbation piece happens all the time. There's always constant contact, whether you're running through the key and someone bumps you, whether you're going, obviously, again, the obvious is, a situation where someone goes to the basket and they get fouled, obviously, okay, there's contact there, right? Like, that's obvious. The whole arena will see that. But what they don't see is when you're cutting through the lane and someone bumps you. And so does that bump really disrupt where you were trying to go in the time you were trying to get there? And does that bump disrupt the other 4 guys or 5 guys in your system? And now everything in that wheel, in that cog wheel, is disrupted now because you got bumped off your line, because you couldn't deal with that perturbation that happens 1,000 times in a game, right? And so, are we looking at the game in that way? That's probably been the best, and I use it in presentations. I've told Travis that when he said it, that was probably one of the best definitions I've ever heard. And then you have that general concept, and then you think about what's your style of play, and what level do you play at, and what is your competition. Like, some conferences play a certain way, some other conferences play a different way. And so are you preparing your athletes for that, who you're playing against, the style you want to play, within those things that I just mentioned before? So that, all of those things go into the needs analysis. And then we think about or at least then I think about what movements are now required, what conditioning, is now required, what strength levels do I need, and power and speed and all those kind of, strength and conditioning qualities. Now I can get into those, because now I understand the game in a general sense. Then I understand our competition. Then I understand our style, what our coaches are asking our players to do. And now I can filter out some things that maybe I don't want to say don't need, but are less of a priority because we play a certain way, or because we play in a certain conference. So that's what I think about when I'm creating a needs analysis, I guess to say, or thinking about the game of basketball.
Yeah, I really like that definition, and I haven't heard anything like that about any sport, honestly. But it makes so much sense to look at it in that way, because that's really what the game is about. And like, you watch the game and you see people running and cutting and jumping and doing all these different things. But that's not the game. Those are just the tasks they need to accomplish the real game, which is, watching the other players and managing the game clock and things like that, scoring baskets, obviously. And I think especially the piece about the perturbation is huge with any contact, any sport that has any kind of contact. When I'm watching, I see like the best athletes on the field are the ones that can control their body better than the other ones. Like, a few weeks ago, I was watching a highlight tape of Derrick Henry, who's a running back in the NFL right now, who went over 2,000 yards this season. And just when people are trying to when they're reaching out towards him, like he's not giving at all. Like, his torso does not move at all, but you see smaller players are like having to lean and shrug that sort of stuff off, and it doesn't even affect them at all. And same kind of thing, like better basketball players, when they're driving, they're not affected, so.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes, a football running back's a great visual comparison, right? Is how many, yards after contact as they stat it in the NFL and in the CFL, right? Like, are you a guy that has really good yards after contact? That shows not only your brute strength, but it also does show that you can deal with those perturbations and not really get disrupted or off balance, or where you're having to slow down a little to reset yourself, and then someone's going to kind of catch up to you and tackle you. Like, can you just maintain the path you were going, right? And again, it happens a lot within that position in football, and it happens a lot within basketball as well.
How are you able to, do you try to work in the perturbations and the time pressures and seeing the other people on the court kind of thing, like the visual stimulus? Are you able to work all that into their training?
I mean, I bought a really long stick now for the perturbations with the social media.
I mean, 2 meter stick.
A few meter stick, right? I mean, yeah, like that. The perturbation piece is obviously something non-pandemic times. It's a big piece of what I do as we progress some of our stability and balance work and some of our torso work. We build up to that stuff. Because it's important, and in different positions, in different stances, not always just 1 foot balancing and then someone's going to push you from the side, like tap your shoulders or whatever, but in a split stance, even in a base stance or even a slightly staggered stance, with your arms overhead, with your arms out to the side, with your, like this is, the creativity and the possibilities are endless, right? And so that's a huge piece. Sometimes it's how we end our warm-ups. Sometimes it's within our prep block for our strength work. Again, it's a little bit trickier now just because of the environment that we're in, with respecting social distancing. So it may be more deceleration work, just dealing with a speed component like a snap down or a box step off, step landing or something like that, depth landing, without kind of that perturbation right now. But it also could be self-guided, right? So if you're doing like a power press to say, and you put kind of a smaller plate, through the band or through the cable, and as you do that press, you kind of press it with some velocity, and then you stop it. That plate's going to shake on that band or that cable, and that's going to create perturbation for you to deal with, right? And instead of me trying to push you, so that stuff can be added in, and you're not really touching anybody. You're keeping your distance and things like that. But yeah, that's a big piece. The visual requirement as we get into our agility work and we progress into more open chain agility work, we'll throw in some of that visual stimulus, whether it's me pointing a direction or reading a defender again, mirror drills and things like that, or just opposites, right? If we're both running to the same cone and it's a Y kind of formation, and I take off to the left cone, are you taking off to the right cone, right? So kind of seeing that and dealing and then reacting from that. So we'll do a lot of that stuff. The time pressure piece is a little bit more within the game, within sport practice, right? And them, understanding the game, and you've heard the saying, the better, if you get better at your sport, time kind of slows down or stays still for really good players. And so, that gets developed on the court. I'm not necessarily in the weight room saying you have 10 seconds to do something. It's not kind of that time pressure. It's more the processing speed, right? The fast thinker idea. And so that can really be developed sometimes in open agility work, but most of the time it's kind of through the game. And are we talking to our sport coaches about maybe incorporating some of those drills more often, or helping them create some of those drills so that they are asking or working on that quality within their practice, right? So we can definitely have conversations with our sport coaches and making sure that we're ticking some of these boxes as well.
Yeah, I really like the point that you bring up about the perturbations, and even like you said, changing the stance and not just single leg, because I think everyone immediately just defaults to, as soon as they hear balance, they think single leg. But how many times are you on the court and you're posting up and you're on 2 feet, or you're boxing somebody out and you're on 2 feet? Like, there's a wide variety of balance in quotations requirements that the sport of basketball throws at you. So I really like the idea of working that stuff into it. And as well as, like you said, with some of the open agility as well.
And even when you're on 1 foot in basketball, like, you're never static on 1 foot in basketball.
No, yeah, it's always dynamic. You're moving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to bring up, because Jay, we've had these conversations before, that's not solely what you do with basketball players. That's an element of the training, but there's also a strength piece that goes with it, because I think sometimes that can get lost, right? As soon as we hear, oh, we do perturbation stuff, we do this, and for whatever reason, minds just default to, oh, it's a bunch of balance training and that's it. But that's definitely not the case, correct?
Right, exactly. You still need strength in basketball, like you just said. If you're in the post, and you're dealing with perturbations, but if you don't have a foundation of strength, if you're not rooted in the ground, it doesn't matter how strong your stabilizers are. If you're not rock solid, then you're going to get pushed off the post no matter what, right? So a big piece of my training is you know, the trap bar deadlift and these strength movements and shoulder press and we're gonna lift heavy stuff and we're gonna do it. Particularly with our younger guys to make sure that they're building the base. That's gonna serve us later on. But yeah, exactly. Sometimes people, can get pigeonholed a little bit, or if you stick your head into one of my sessions for 5 minutes and you say, well, they're just like got a lot of med balls and they're kind of like reaching around and they're hopping around, and it's like, yeah, you just missed. This is just a prep work. Come back in 5 minutes when we have 300 pounds on the trap bar, right? Like, and we're doing singles or we're doing doubles, right? Like, it goes on. Now there's stuff we have to consider as far as when we think about basketball, the length of these guys' limbs, and that we will have to maybe make modifications or use specialty bars, but it doesn't mean that we're not lifting. And again, like, depending on your style, if you're a team that likes to bang and crash and you're in a conference that is physical, you have to prepare your players for that. And some of that might look like bodybuilding, or might look like powerlifting, or might not look a lot like basketball, right? But it's a good mix within my session. I usually try to have a main exercise, right? And that's our strength focus exercise, and then we'll have some torso work around that, or some accessory work around that, and then one of our accessory either blocks, so like 2 or 3 exercises, or kind of the fourth exercise in that main block is something in a different plane, or something where we're not necessarily thinking about super heavy weight. We're more thinking about creating a shape, or working on the connective tissue, or moving with some speed, and that's where you'll see that kind of stuff. So I try to balance it out, and not just do too much of one single thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's important with open sports like that. Like, you can't spend too much time doing one thing, because I mean, arguably, you're never ever going to do the same thing twice on a basketball court. There's always going to be something that's a little bit different. The angle's going to be a little bit different. The time constraint's a little bit different, or you're going to have to, jump a little bit higher or whatever. Like, it's always different. So they got to be able to, change and adapt and be capable of doing different things.
Yeah, precisely. And again, a lot of these guys are, they haven't been in the weight room, growing up. And so that's the bucket that is, needs to get full, particularly if they're, a first year guy, and now you're in university, and you could be playing against a guy who's 5, 6, 7, 8 years older than you, and is a man, and you're 17 or 18, right? So, and you haven't really been in the weight room. So we need to build that strength up, and we need to, still work on your movement capacity and things like that. But, that's the bucket that needs to get filled right now, and needs to be the emphasis. And for some guys, that's what it is. Other guys, it's maybe a speed component, or it's a, agility component, or it's, again, that fascial chain work, or, there's different things, right? And to have the opportunity to just have a small group of guys now, I can be really specific on that kind of stuff, right?
So when you're getting more specific with these guys, how are you determining, like, which guys need to focus a little bit more on movement, which guys need to focus a little bit more on strength, which guys need to focus a little bit more on speed, or even, which guys need to learn how to be a little bit more like creative with what they're doing and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from, conversation with the coaches. Obviously this has been a difficult year. Nobody really played. So, for me, entering getting the job in October, we haven't played basketball, since I've competitively, like, we've been practicing, but so I haven't seen them play at all. I'm watching games from last year, trying to figure out, where maybe guys are deficient. But that was a year ago, so maybe that's not even the case anymore, right? And so that's the challenge with where we are now. But a lot of it comes from, coach conversations. Say, what do you need this guy to be able to do? What are his shortcomings, talking to the players, and often asking them, those type of similar questions. But I always also have to ask what their NBA comparison is. Like honestly, like don't just say Kevin Durant, don't just say LeBron James. Like, okay, we all wish we were that person, but we're not. So what's a truthful NBA comparison? And you'd be surprised. The guys will be honest and they'll say, bench players or backup, Fred VanVleet I got this year talking to one of our point guards. And it's like, okay, well, what do you like about his game? And they'll maybe talk about basketball stuff, but they also talk about, hey, I like how he doesn't get pushed off the ball. I like how he's low and he has, thick legs and he's strong. And, okay, great. Like, that's awesome. We can use that. So that's kind of, how I'll start those conversations. And then watching, again, I'm in a unique situation, but trying to watch practice and watch games as much as you can and start to understand what are they being asked to do and can they fulfill those things. And hey, he's really getting asked to play inside a lot and he's not strong enough to deal with that. Okay, cool. Mental note. He needs some more strength. He needs some more upper body strength or whatever the case is. Or he keeps, on the defensive end, they keep beating him right. For some reason, he can't move right now. Now, what is that reason? Okay. Maybe it's injury history. Maybe it's, he's not just coordinated on that side. Okay, well, let's look at that in further detail or try to tease it out with assessments or injury history. So, yeah, it's just watching and taking notes and communicating with the coach and the players and then formulating that plan or starting to bucket, 3-4 guys that maybe have a similar deficiency and start to bucket those guys together. And maybe they're doing some different prep work, or maybe there's opportunities for them to come separately or stay after practice or those type of things, right? I mean, again, normal situation, that can happen right now. There's restrictions and this and that, but if we're talking about normal situation, yeah, hey, you guys just stay after practice. We're going to work on some lateral movement with a little bit of an emphasis to the right side, right? Or you're going to do a few more sets, or everybody else is doing 6 reps. You're going to do 3 to 4 reps, right? Like just making those small intercession changes, so that guy gets what he needs. You're not throwing the whole book out and building him a completely different program. It's just a couple of small changes to make him feel like he's getting what he needs, but he's also still part of the team, right?
What's it called? One thing I'm glad that you brought up the idea of watching and seeing the game. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours of basketball Braden and I watched at Waterloo. I mean, I'm pretty sure we saw almost every practice. The only time we didn't see practice is when we were the men's team would be on the court and the women's team were in the weight room, for example. But our weight room was just on the 3rd floor and it overlooked the court. So even at times you could see what was going on. But yeah, we watched almost every practice. We watched every single game, even the ones where they had to fly up to, I don't even know what it's called, that university that's like way north that you take the 12-hour plane ride.
Algoma.
Sorry, Algoma.
Yeah.
If anyone from Algoma is listening, I'm sorry I forgot the name of your university.
Yeah, Algoma.
Like we watched the OUA feed of that. So we watched a lot of basketball. And I mean, for us, I think that helped inform us of what we needed to do in conjunction with the conversations we had with the players. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think that's such an underrated element of figuring out the game is, like you said, you start to see the different things and the little things. Like you said, you notice, oh, this person keeps getting beat to one side. You don't see that in the bigger picture. You just see changing direction and jumping. But when you start to watch it way more, you see those small details that I feel like is that an example of the things you'd probably build into that, like some of your perturbation training and balance, like that's where the little things, small details start to emerge.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference. A lot of, you have to love the sport. I think, sometimes people get into strength and conditioning or because they love working out, and that's great. But you better like sports because you're going to be around sports all the time. And as you get more specific or as you grow and different opportunities, you better really love a specific sport. Like I grew up playing hockey, and that's really the sport I played all the way through. And when I had the opportunity to work hockey, it was so cool because I understood the game, and so I was watching it. I could see the decisions they were making. I could see why they were making that decision because I understood the tactical piece of that. I wasn't as strong in basketball because I didn't really play rep basketball. I didn't really play high school basketball. That only developed because I would I would run warm up, and then I would just stay there and just watch. And part of that responsibility with Canada basketball, that's really what it is. You warm them up, you make sure the heart rate monitors don't, cop out or crash or something weird happen. And that's it. And you got a towel, and if someone falls down, you wipe the floor. That's your job in practice, right? And so if you're paying attention and you have your ears are open and your eyes are open, then you start to understand, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is what the coaches are telling them. Okay, can he do it? Oh no, he can't do it. And it's not because he doesn't understand, it's because his body won't let him. Oh, get down, stay low. It's like he can't stay low because he doesn't have the mobility. Okay, great, good to know. So I'm making little notes, I'm writing it down. And then if I see in that from a global standpoint of hey, our whole team is having trouble with this, then that's in the warm-up. Then that becomes part of what goes in the warm-up now. Because this is a global issue. We need to work on this every single day within our warm-up and our cool down. And hopefully over time that doesn't, that alleviates itself, right? And sometimes it's even movement, movements, right? Like I had a coach the one summer, and it was a specific tactical way he wanted the players to go around the screen if we were on defense and we were chasing a player around the screen. We were on offense and we were kind of using the screen, and he wanted us to he kept saying whip it. He was like, whip it. And I was like, what is he talking about? Whip it. And so he just keeps saying whip it. And then we talked about what whip it means. And I'm like, all right, well, it's kind of just curvilinear running. That's in my brain. That's what whip it is. Okay. He wants to whip around, do it fast. Okay, great. So then I'm like, well, I better show him that we're working on this. So in the warm up, I'm putting kind of cone spaced out, and we're just running around the cone, but running around it quicker. Yeah. And cueing whip it. When coach says whip it, this is what he's talking about. So we need to go around fast. We need to stay low. We create angles with our shins and this and that. Because I heard that, I paid attention. I said we need to work on it, and then I put it in the warm up every day. Did it get better? I'm not sure. Does he even want them whipping it a month later? Who knows? But I had my ears open and my eyes open. So that's so important. I mean, Tommy, we've been on many sidelines with Canada basketball junior academy, just sitting there watching, and you can learn the game so well.
Well, maybe it looks like we were just sitting there.
Right.
We were watching, we're discussing, we're seeing stuff.
Yeah, taking it in. And you guys have a similar relationship, right? You guys see something. Hey, what did you see there? Oh, I saw this. Oh, okay, I saw this. Okay, well, how do you think we should attack that? Hey, I think he needs a little of this in his strength or in his warm-up, or hey, that's the third guy I saw have difficulty with that. We should put in the warm-up. Okay, great. The more cooks you have in the kitchen, the more brains you have, the more opportunities and ideas can come about, right? So that's kind of where that comes from, and why my warm-ups particularly are always evolving and always changing, not only because it gets stagnant and the season's really long, but because the requirements the coach is asking are always subtly changing, right? And so we have to always subtly change what we do to prepare them.
Mm-hmm. One thing I really wanted to ask you, Jay, today was how much you are coaching movement and how much you are letting the athlete kind of self-organize. You sent us a couple of podcasts when we talked last week with Bobby Stroop, which I really, really enjoyed. And then that kind of led me down another rabbit hole. And I've heard a lot of coaches talking about, letting the athlete self-organize and letting the athlete be creative and putting constraints on an exercise or whatever that either help foster that creativity or removing constraints to help foster that creativity. and just, how sometimes you can coach an athlete so much that performance declines and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and when I started my career, I was really really rigid, and I came up on a facility called Velocity, and we had it was founded by a track and field coach, and we had a very really big movement component to what we did. So our high school groups and stuff would come in for an hour and a half. That was their session length, and it was kind of like 30 30 30. So it'd be like 30 minutes of dynamic work. Now that kind of got shaped to probably 20 minutes really, but and then the second 30, 25 to 30 minutes was movement, and each day was a different uh direction, I guess. So one day was acceleration, the other day was change of direction, and the other day was kind of top end speed or max velocity. And then we had, the other 40 minutes was strength, right? And then a little conditioning. But within that, there was essentially a curriculum, right? And there was essentially like academically like lesson plans. It was very like, it was a franchise, so it was very laid out. And so you kind of did, level one of acceleration, and then you move to level two, you move to level three, and so on and so on. And so I became really rigid. Like, this is exactly what we're looking for, and this, I'm going to teach you this, and then you're going to move to this, and you were like kind of like a little robotic, right? And then as I grew and exposed myself to different philosophies, yeah, I became much more open. And yeah, we're looking for shapes. I think that's the best way to think about it. Is like we're looking for certain shapes, and those shapes are going to put us in either good positions to express force and push ourselves in the right direction and create speed and power. And some shapes are not. They could put us in a position for injury. They could just be really inefficient. There could be, like you said before, there could be this upper body sway that we don't want if we're changing direction and things like that. And so I've done a lot more of that, of like, okay, here's the shape we want. There's some drills that will help us create that shape, whether that's on the wall or in a harness or keeping them in a certain area or number of steps, right? Like okay, we're just doing one or two and then we'll walk back, those type of things. But letting them figure it out and understanding that, particularly within basketball, those guys, their limbs are just like out of control. And so they're so long, and their shape or their position is not going to be cookie cutter, right? But are they, in a good position? Yes. Are they, able to express the force? Yes. Are they in a position for injury? No. Or potential, and kind of going from there. So that's kind of how I view it. I do like, putting constraints on them or and then slowly taking them away, or vice versa. And whether that's, speed or space or, like I said before, harnesses or things like that. Med balls, Tommy and I have talked a lot about wickets and stick overhead stick running and things like that, and where those, when to use that tool and what place it has in your development. But yeah, I definitely, I'm much more, my bandwidth is the best way to say it. My bandwidth has expanded. My bandwidth was really, really narrow before. Like I remember, like I don't know what I don't know. I went to Athletes Performance, which is now called Exos, and I did a mentorship there, and we were talking, and this is like, who's leading that at the time? Nick Winkelman was leading the mentorship at this time.
Oh, true. He still would have been there. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So he was there, and this was 2008, I think. So, we were going through max velocity, something they would teach it, and I was like, just asking them, but asking them a way like I had already had the answer because I had been taught it at Velocity, and I was like, but what about this? Like, aren't we supposed to be doing it like this? And they're like, no, like you can, but they already were the point where their bandwidth was big, and they were like, no, it's okay as long as you're in this bandwidth, you're still cool. And then I was like, oh, well, that's not kind of how I was taught this rigid way, and so that started my thought of, hey, expanding that a little bit, giving a little bit more grace to different body types or different positions and things like that. So yeah, my bandwidth is a lot wider now. And even within exercise technique as well, not just movement, but also exercise technique. A 6'10" guy is not going to squat the same way that I squat at 5'10". It's not going to happen. So why am I trying to make him do that the same way? Like I got to find a different solution for him to still get the benefits that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's an interesting difference, I think. Like, I think it's really commonplace for like programs to be really individualized, and that's what everyone wants to do and wants to look for and like try to find the one thing that this person needs to work on that will, help them specifically. But then how can you take that same philosophy and apply it to movement and say that everybody needs to do a lateral bound this exact way and everyone needs to do a squat this exact way? Like, it doesn't make sense. We're all different people. And I mean, if we're training them for, open sports, like, you're never going to have the exact same foot placement when you're boxing somebody out. You're never going to be taking off from the exact same spot if you're doing a dunk or a layup or whatever. So it makes sense to be able to have more leeway in your movements and more creativity and more variation and all those different things.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to build their library, right? And their movement library for them to be able to draw upon, right? When I talk to younger athletes, when we do presentations or whatever, I think about it like spelling. Like, how did you learn to spell words when you were a little kid? First you learned the letters, right? And how to write the letters. Okay, great. You got A to Z, no problem. Then you start to spell smaller words like cat and dog and things like that. Okay, no problem. Then you started spelling bigger words. But if you were also starting to read at the same time, and you're reading and you're learning new words, and now you're learning all these other words and what they mean and when to use them in sentences and things like that, now your library is like so vast, right? It's the same thing with movement, right? You got to start with just learning the basics, and yeah, there's more rigidity maybe within that. The bandwidth is really narrow, but then as you expand, and now if you're in an open sport like basketball or reaction sport, now you're pulling from all different things because you've been. I mean, that was the podcast I sent you guys. You're pulling from all different things because you have now a bigger vocabulary of movement to pull from, right? And so I always think about it like that, like the same way you think about vocabulary in writing and reading. Same thing with your body, right? Like the more you could give it, the more different things. And yeah, it amazes me, some of these basketball players, right? Oh, I only jump off with my left foot. I'm only 2-foot jumper. I go, what? Like, what happens if you get caught on your right foot? What happens? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's not good. Like, that's going to happen. Sometimes that's going to happen. And now, does that create a potential for injury now because you're not used to it? That limb difference is way too great. And now we got a potential for injury. Is that not going to go in? Like, is that shot now going to get blocked because you don't have the coordination and you don't have the balance and things like that to go off your left foot, or, to do something that's unexpected? We're in trouble. And to a certain extent, if our responsibility as performance coaches is movement, sometimes, we're just thought about the weight as a weight room person. But if we are incorporating that stuff, then that falls on us too, because we have to do a better job of getting them landing and hopping in different planes and different vectors and things like that. And maybe it's just in the warm up. Like, I mean, that's not too hard to put some of that stuff in your 8-minute, 10-minute warm up every practice. Like, we're not asking for like your whole session's got to be hopping and bounding and things like this. Just put it in a little bit at the end and create that comfort level for them on each foot and landing different ways and things like that, right? 2 feet to 1 foot, 1 foot to 2 foot, left to right, transverse plane, frontal plane, sagittal plane, all that stuff, right? So, I mean, that's how we finished our warm up today. We did a hop series, it's technically a bound series. We did a bouncers today, all directions, each foot, 30, 40 seconds maybe it took, and that's it. And we're good to go.
Yeah, can you imagine LeBron James explaining why he missed a layup because he had to take off his left foot and he's not used to doing that. You make $30 million a year. We don't care what foot you have to take off of. You got to put that in.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But no, I really like that idea of comparing it to language and expanding the vocabulary. And I think that it makes a lot of sense as a strength coach to see it like that, where you want to make sure, to continue with the analogy, that they can spell, each word correctly, but you don't need to hold their hand and make sure that their calligraphy is perfect. Like, they'll figure it out how to make a letter as long as they know what the letters are, and it's kind of our job to expand the vocabulary and make sure that they're capable of everything that they need to be able to do, and capable of things beyond that, and then just give them license to be creative with different stuff and let them, figure it out. But if they don't have the tools, then they don't have the options, to do anything.
Right, exactly. And again, that adds some variation within your summertime too. Like, that's where you can put in a lot of this kind of, game-based stuff, and that's gonna, create a different atmosphere for them for learning and for expressing these things that they don't always aren't able to express, or don't know that they even know how to do that. Is getting them on the field, play dodgeball, play different sports, do different kind of activities, get in the sand, this type of stuff, and see what happens and see what their bodies do, and then again observe it, and then you can tweak it from there. But that's I love the summertime for that reason, just to kind of get outside, get on the field, and do some different things, and more of an open play kind of situation, right? Like, I mean, it's great to, like, have a basketball player. I think the strength coach at Stanford, who's in Phoenix, he used to post a lot of his stuff when he was at Stanford, and he would have the guys on the field playing football, like doing one-on-one type of drills, right? Like, like a receiver and a DB. And it's like, yeah, because those are all relatable skills to basketball. Can you cover someone if they move, or can you hip turn? Can you kind of get into that crossover run? Can you, all these type of things that happen in a one-on-one matchup on the football field, like, those are similar things that happen on the court. It's just a different context, right? But that's a way to incorporate those things, but also kind of have some fun at the same time.
Maybe the last thing we kind of touch on before we wrap up is maybe a little bit about the energy system, because I think when people think basketball, right, we tend to default to the highlight reel, right? You think about big dunks, you think about, someone getting their ankles broken. They're big, they're flashy plays, right? Where it's explosive, it happens quick. And so I think we tend to maybe skew our thinking to going, that's a game that's completely predicated around speed and explosive abilities, which there's no doubt those explosive abilities are extremely important for basketball. But Jay, you've talked a little bit to us about sort of the aerobic side, and maybe that being a little bit more underrated, because when you start to look at the minutes that some of these players are asked to play in the game, you have to have that component prepared, do we not? And I think, would you agree that maybe that's a bit of an underrated aspect of the sport?
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, within our industry, right, like, that pendulum swung way too far away from aerobic work, and never do it, and high intensity interval training is the only thing to do, and that's all you need, and Tabata this and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of it swung way over there, and but now it's kind of, the more you talk to people, the more it's kind of swung back to where it should be, which is kind of in the middle, and you need all of the systems working together, because they also don't work by themselves. It's not, the more we are learning about energy systems, the more we're understanding that what I have in my textbook behind me is I could put those energy system sheets in the garbage, right? Like, it's not a switch that just comes on and then oh, alactic, 10 seconds later, this, like, that's not what happens, right? Like, they're all working at the same time. They're working at different capacities, right? And so if one of those systems is underdeveloped, it's going to hurt the other ones, right? And whether that means the restorative quality of the other one, whether it means the length you can sustain those efforts for, that's gonna suffer. So we're understanding what happens in the game better and better. I mean, at the youth sport level, there's only a handful of schools, and that's part of what I'm doing now is trying to reach out to them and that have been using heart rate monitors on their student athletes for an extended period of time. And so we're starting to understand kind of what is happening at our level, right? Like, yeah, we can look at the NBA and GPS and heart rate and all that kind of stuff, but that's a very specific type of athlete A and type of basketball B. I mean, the rules aren't even the same in the NBA as they are in Canadian basketball. So we already have differences there. And then we could look at NCAA, same problem with the NCAA, right? Different rules, different styles, different emphasis on training in general. Those athletes are different. So we can't really look at an NCAA game heart rate data and say, well, we need our players to be able to replicate that. That's not fair and that's not accurate. So throw that out the window. And so, I've been fortunate. At Mac, we've heart rated every single practice since we've gotten back on the court. So I'm starting to compile that data. It's not game data. It's also not really 5-on-5 data. But it's helping to shed some light on some things that maybe are deficient, especially when we practice every day and our guys bouncing back and our guys able to push themselves the next day to the same capacity and levels that they were before. And some of them are not. And are they, if we use a car analogy, are they at 6,000 RPMs and they should be at 2,000 RPMs? Like, what's happening there, right? Like, are they over revving themselves because their system's just out of whack? So, I think that aerobic piece is so important. How do we do that in the sense of like not putting extra pounding on their joints, right? Like, how do we pick our spots with that? Can we kind of do some interval type work with longer rest periods and low impact stuff, so we're getting that average heart rate to be in a place where we're working those systems, but not saying go for a 10K run. Like, that's just kind of not what we want either, because then it's shin splint time and my feet hurt. So that's not what we want to do either. Those guys aren't built for running, or they'd be on the cross country team. So, how do we balance that? But it is something that I do try to emphasize with a lot of the basketball teams that I've worked with is hey, like, just go for a 45-minute, 60-minute walk twice a week, like, and get an audio book, get a podcast, whatever. Just move your body in a low end heart rate zone for an extended period of time. And that's gonna kind of refill the tank and create a situation where, a lot of the bulk of our condition is going to happen in practice, and that's fine. But that's the mid range, right? Not the top end, not the bottom end. And so we as professionals need to fill some of that stuff. So that super high burst stuff, some of that sprint work and long rest stuff, like, we need to fill that bucket probably. And then the super low end work, we probably have to fill that bucket too. I posted this was one of my very first Instagram posts, and when I was at Seneca College, we in our summer program, I think it might have been 1 or 2 practices a week, or nights a week after practice, we would go to the parking lot and we would essentially just run the parking lot. Like, there was no cars. It was a back parking lot. It was really long, and we just run the parking lot. And we would run it for 25 minutes. That was part of the education to our coaches. Was like, let's not say 5K or 3K, because they're just going to burn through that. They're just going to run that as fast as they can because they want to be done with it. And now the system we thought we were working, we're not, because they're working too hard. And so let's just put a time on it and say, let's run for 20 minutes or 25 minutes and build up, right? At a conversation pace. And so, you should be talking to your teammate who's beside you, and just shoot the breeze with them, get to know them, whatever. And the one time I did it with the guys because I wanted to make sure that they were actually at the tempo and pace that I wanted, and they weren't overextending themselves. And so I was running with them. I would ease back with the guys that were kind of at the back. I would speed up and be with the guys at the front. But I had a GPS watch on at the time. This is how, I mean, I don't like running with my phone anyway, but I had a GPS watch on, and I uploaded the data, and it was just literally a line that went back and forth like this. It was just a line. And I posted that on Instagram, and I said, to you, it may look just like a line in a parking lot. But for me, it looks like buy-in from our coaches. It looks like buy-in from our guys. It looks like we're working on something that not a lot of people are even thinking about, how our aerobic system works, and that we need to develop it. I'm not making them slower, which is the other, how aerobic system became a bad word. It's like, oh, you train slow, you get slow. It's like if you do a walk twice a week or you do a jog once a week, you're not going to get slower. You're doing enough speed work in the rest of the time that you don't have to worry about it.
If you're doing your speed work, you're not going to get slow.
Yeah,
Like, one
because
jog
you do a
isn't going to
20
ruin that. If you're not doing any speed work, then you're probably going to get slow.
Right. So that, I mean, and they, as we work through the weeks, the feedback was, hey, like, not only is this getting easier, the run in the parking lot, but they're like, hey, I'm feeling better at practice. I'm not as gassed. Like, this and that, I can recover, a little bit better when we come back the next day, things like that. And so it was super important. And I've always phrased that system to athletes as a savings account, right? So the aerobic system is your savings account. So, you're spending money on your credit card and your debit card and the other systems, but eventually you need to refill that bank account. And how do you do that? You go into your savings, you move the money from your savings account into pay off your visa, and there you go, you're back in business, right? But if you have no money in your savings account because you never worked on your aerobic system, you're in trouble, right? Eventually, you're just not going to have anything left. And so, I try to phrase it like that where they can understand, like, we don't have to do this every day. And the more, again, Tommy and I have talked about residual training qualities. Once you build up a base, you probably really don't have to do it but once a month or once every 3 weeks, right, to maintain that system. So, that's how I view conditioning. Again, I think they get a lot from the sport if the drills are set up correctly and the rest times are set up correctly. We're starting to understand what the actual game demands of youth sport basketball are, slowly from a heart rate standpoint, and that we can't ignore the aerobic system. It is so important, but we have to be smart about how we program it, so we're not kind of busting up the athletes and then having other issues, right? You can't just go for an 8K run when you've never run before, and then coach, I can't practice, right? Like, so it's gradually building that up. Swimming's great. Med ball, body weight circuits are great. I mean, people have been doing those since the pandemic, but body weight circuit 30-30, stuff like this over time, are a great way to work on that system as well. And train with a heart rate monitor. I think they're not super expensive. The smartwatches have them now. Your phone has it. You just kind of can check every so often with the optical piece of your phone, or if you can get a heart rate monitor, but that way that you're hitting the target that you're actually kind of aiming for, right? So that's been a big benefit as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I definitely agree that I think the aerobic system is underrated, probably in a lot of sports, but yeah, basketball for sure. I feel like you can get a lot of the other energy system work done in your other training anyway, and yeah, the aerobic system is definitely going to impact how you recover. And I was listening to another coach talk about how he wanted to, in sport in general, have the aerobic system just like raise the capacity of the aerobic system so that more of the things you need to do in a game are more aerobic, so that you're not reaching that threshold where you're starting to dip into the lactate and stuff, and you're not like, you don't have to get tired to do these different things. You know what I mean? So it's
very similar to like speed reserve, right? But if you think about like speed reserve, it's the same concept. It's not called that, but like maybe it could be called that. It's like, if you push that system up, then yeah, you're not dipping into the other areas and having to work in fourth gear when you should be working in second gear, right? Like, and so, I'm seeing that now, with the data that we're collecting, it's like, we have some work to do in that area, because some of this stuff we shouldn't be, like I said, kind of redlining and we're not bouncing back, and we're also maybe not bouncing back as well either, right? In the season, we're playing, over a weekend, 2 games, you're getting 25, 30 minutes a game. You have a small window to recover. And if your aerobic system's not there for you, the second game, you're going to be in trouble, right? And that's where you could see a drop off. And even, are you recovering within the 10, 15-minute halftime? Are you recovering in the 2-3 minute quarter breaks? Like those type of things. And if that system's not there for you, it's going to show up, right? So, my guys won't be welcome to hear that, but yeah, we're gonna get into that stuff and really train that system. The weather's getting nicer, and Mac is a beautiful campus to be able to do some trail walking, running intervals, or walk, sprint, jog intervals, things like that, where we're not pounding too much, and we're on a softer surface like a trail or a field. But yeah, it's a big piece to what I do, particularly in the summer months. And that's where I lean on Tommy, right? For some of that tempo run stuff, we've talked about it, and how to get that stuff in a safe environment, in a safe way, to get some of those benefits. I had great success with kind of tempo running, when I was at Seneca as well in the summer months. So
yeah, that's a great answer to that question. That's a lot of really good information. Like for anyone out there who's working with basketball, anyone out there who's working with that sport, like that's a lot of good ideas, a lot of good analogies, that a lot of great stuff there for people to take away and try some of these things and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's like fantastic answer.
I got a question. Yeah, I got a question for you guys. We, kind of piggybacking your podcast last time. Just about, is there any, and I don't know, I listened to it, but again, like how specific you got, but is there kind of like unique pieces? I know Braden obviously like powerlifting and stuff. Like, is there unique pieces of equipment that you use that like kind of like not many, but I would be surprised that you use, but just like, hey, I don't know if I could live without this, or if I was buying a facility, if I was building a facility, I'm gonna get 20 of these. Like, is there? I know it's probably a squat rack, Braden, but is there anything else that like, I saw this really cool. The reason I asked is I saw this really cool piece. It's escaping me who makes it, but when you use band accommodating resistance, right? For like a trap bar squat or deadlift, right? And so if you don't have the hooks on the rack, you kind of you end up standing on it. Like, have you guys done that before?
Oh
like
yeah, but then it pulls your feet because the tension of the band is
so your feet are kind of weird, and you're standing on the band. It's not, it's got to be flat, and still it's not. So I saw this. It's like a platform. It's small, like your feet go on it, but that part's flat, and then it has kind of like pegs on the side, and the band loops around the pegs and then loops onto the trap bar. But it can be moved. It's not like in a rack. You can kind of move this thing. But I was like, man, that's genius, because I hate standing on the things. And if that was a big piece of my programming, if I really did a lot of like band assisted or accommodating resistance, I would probably have to get some of those, because it's such a cool piece. Like, is there any other things that you guys like are unique, I guess, to the way that you think about training the athletes that you guys work with?
Not really for me. Like it's definitely going to be racks and bars and weight and platforms and things like that. I mean, I really like the cable machine and how versatile that is, kind of thing. And the one piece that I mentioned on that episode was the chest supported row, just for the ability to develop a lot of upper back strength without loading the lower back, because that's something that we want to be sparing on as much as we can. But I mean, it's it's different with powerlifters. Like we don't need to be able to do a lot of different stuff. It's just, 3 movements and really, you got to be strong and like being fast helps sometimes, but mostly you just got to be strong. So we don't have to worry too much about developing energy systems or, speed or reactivity, all these different stuff. So
the energy system work for you guys is when you do 3 sets of 8.
that's exactly right. So 3 sets of 6 is pushing it.
I've grown to love the curved treadmill a lot, and I use them a lot here. Well, I mean, it's been different now with the pandemic because what counts as heavy breathing and whatever in the facilities. But like that was something we had 2, maybe 3 of them at Waterloo. There was 2 or 3 of them at Mac. And I look back at those years, I'm like, man, I underutilized that thing, especially in the winter months, especially for just doing runs where you can change the speed and the tempo of things. Like I'm glad that I've got the experience to use that piece of equipment here, because that's something, they're expensive, but it's something that I could see being useful for any sport or any athlete that needs to run. So that would probably be, something like that's the first thing that popped into my brain. Probably biased because we were just talking about conditioning. But that's, it's something I've grown to like a lot.
I use that thing all the time at Waterloo.
You did?
You did. No, I never used it.
I thought you said you did. That's what I was like, when I didn't get to see this. I got to see.
No, that thing was scary, man. That thing was scary to use.
Personally, I used it, but I don't think I took advantage of it with the athletes that I worked with enough.
Yeah, there's definitely, no pun intended, a learning curve to that treadmill.
Yes.
Because it's self-powered, right? And so we had one at St. Lawrence when I was at St. Lawrence, and as soon as I walked in the building in the new facility and I saw it, I was like, okay, like that's big time. Like this is going to be great for our field sport athletes in the winter months. But yeah, it is intimidating. It is a different feel because it's, self-powered. And so I often got kids just walk on it, like just understand where their foot placement has to be, what your posture has to be, and then jog on, like gradually get it. And then they got comfortable and they're ripping on it. But it's there's definitely a learning piece to that. Tommy, training, having the opportunity to train you as a high school student and as an early university student, you've used the Viper that I've had a lot, I think, or quite a bit.
I think I missed the Viper.
Did you?
Yeah, I think that Viper was more. It would have been Chris and Mikey who got to use it more.
Yeah, I think that's a piece. So it's essentially a rubber tube, like that comes in different weights and different circumferences, and it has kind of 2 ends. It's open all the way through, and it kind of has handles here, like 2 handles on one side, 1 handle on the other side. And it's a piece I really like. Just again, like as we think about loading some of these unconventional stances or unconventional movement patterns, it creates a situation where you can add this mass and momentum to some of these movements, and you have to decelerate that now and re-accelerate it in the other direction or wherever you're trying to do it. And that's been such a, like I have one personally, and it's such a huge piece because it's just, dumbbells are great and you can load some of these reaching patterns with dumbbells, but it's not as smooth, right? If you try to, do a lateral bound or kind of rip your arms across it, same thing. Med balls are good too, but sometimes the hand position can be a little bit small if the med ball's smaller, things like that. So that's a piece that is pretty unique. If I bring it to the gym and I'm working with an individual athlete, I'll bring it from home and I'll get a lot of like, what the heck is that thing? Like what are they doing over there? But it's definitely a piece that I'd like to add more of in my personal gym, but also kind of as I get a little bit more established on Mac and kind of add that to the wish list, right? But I'm known for that. I'm known for the guy that has weird stuff and has a lot of different equipment and and try to experiment and see where that stuff fits in the greater scheme of things, and is it a small rock or is it a big rock, and where does it fit within your training process? So I really, that's why I really loved listening to you guys last week with that one, because I really enjoy what goes into some of those decisions based on your philosophy and what you think is the best tool to get that outcome that you're looking for.
I'm gonna steal a Braden quote here. Smooth transition.
Nice.
Jay, you have all kinds of. Like I said, I've seen the trunk of your car. I've seen all the different gear and training stuff that you have.
You've pushed my car. In fact,
I have pushed your car through the parking lots as well. Yeah, we've used your car as a training tool.
Oh, that's nice. We did that one at UW with Corey too.
Yeah. So you have all these different training tools and toys and stuff like that. When you're playing around with them, I'm sure you got music playing. And so what sort of stuff have you been listening to in the last like week, let's say, when you've been working out, throwing the Viper around, doing crazy stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great one. If it's an early morning workout, like it was this morning, I usually get into some kind of like EDM and get the bass pumping a little bit, and that gets the juices flowing, right? I have been watching the new Last Chance U basketball edition on Netflix, and that school is based in California, and so a lot of the music that they're playing in the background of the show is California hip hop, right? And so that's got those juices flowing as far as California hip hop. The weather's getting a little nicer here too, and so I've been listening to some California hip hop, Dr. Dre and old Snoop Dogg and Nipsey Hussle and Kendrick
Original
and things
stuff.
like that. Yeah, and stuff like that with the windows down a little bit, and then for the workouts, the EDM and the old school hip hop's been powering those workouts. What about you guys?
Well, I got into the Tommy told me to listen to the Hailstorm cover songs 2 weeks ago, I guess, and then I just started listening to them. And I can report that my favorite is the 21 Pilots Heathens song. That's my favorite from that list there.
So you've had that on repeat for the last
I've not had that on repeat actually. Like when I went to the gym last week, I was trying to find it on Spotify, but there was only 6 of the songs on that Spotify album, and there's so many more cover songs that they have. So like I just was listening to the rest of them this morning. But yeah, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. Some good stuff there. But that that playlist led me to another band that I really like that I listen to just a little bit of, but I'm gonna dig into more when I'm in the gym is 1,000 Foot Crutch, which I don't know if you've listened to very much of them, Tommy.
I've heard the name. I don't know if I can name a single tune, but I've heard of the band.
Yeah,
I know it's a thing.
I like them a lot. I don't know how to describe their music. It's I don't know. It's like hard rock metal-ish. It's not your kind of metal. It's not thrash or anything like that.
I can pull a little bit from both of you here. So this is late to the party by the time this goes out. But like Daft Punk retired like a month ago.
Oh, I did hear that.
They're done making music. Flawless career in my opinion. Everything they made was really great. And so I feel like just like when an athlete retires and you see highlight videos come out left, right, and center for that athlete, they've called it quits. And so I've been listening to their stuff more and more, but I really, really like Daft Punk. I love their music. And so Jay was talking about working out to EDM, and there's a lot of Daft Punk stuff that I love to work out to. And actually my favorite Hailstorm cover song is Hailstorm's cover of Get Lucky by Daft Punk, Pharrell Williams, and Niles Rodger. That's my favorite cover song by them. So yeah, like I said, late to the party because they announced the retirement about a month ago, probably by the time this goes out. But yeah, listening to Daft Punk.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That was up there on my list, but that's a good one too.
Yeah, the listeners hopefully have a lot. They got a whole week's worth of stuff they can listen to now. Mm-hmm. Got lots of ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, good stuff. I mean, yeah, that was a great talk. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Jay, and hopefully we'll have you back sometime and dig a little bit more into that conditioning stuff when you got a little bit more data to work with. And yeah.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it'd be great to come back and yeah, as I'm getting into the data, yeah, that's been a big piece of my role right now is digging through some of that and trying to figure out where our gaps are. And yeah, I would love to come back anytime.
And then Jay, just for the listeners, where can they find you on Instagram or anything like that if they want to check out some of the stuff that you're doing or, get more good ideas from you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can DM me, or I put, it's a good mix of training stuff and so the personal side as well. But my handle is JAY_SP coach. Same on Twitter, I think, maybe without the underscore. I can't remember. Not super on Twitter, but I've trying to get a little bit more active on Twitter. There's some good conversations that happen over there. So yeah, reach out anytime. And hopefully as we open up, be able to have you guys come by and see the facility and see what we're doing at Mac.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I'm so excited to come back to Ontario and visit people. And yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, and then for the rest of us, Speed Strength Show, Speed Strength Performance, and Braden Southern all on Instagram for whatever you want to let us know or ask us questions or get us to talk about something on future episodes. Very open to all of that. Yeah, anything else from you two guys?
No, just thank you to Jay. Thanks for coming on. It was awesome, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
No, yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Again, you guys have been doing such a great job with the podcast, and looking forward to where you guys continue to take it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate it. And yeah, so that was the Speed Strength Show. Thanks for coming along, world.
We'll see you next week.
Peace.